What's up, everybody? Welcome back to another episode of Bucco Territory, presented to you by the Foul Territory Network. My name's Noah Hiles. Joining me, as always, are my co-hosts, Platinum Key, a.k.a. Mark, and Josh Harrison, a.k.a. Jay. Hey, fellas, we come to this viewing audience with breaking news overnight after we were all sleeping off that horrible performance by the New England Patriots in the Super Bowl. The Pirates signed Marcel Ozuna to a one-year, $12 million contract with a mutual option worth $16 million in 2027. He looks to probably be their final significant addition of the offseason. So this show, in addition to be a breaking news reaction, will be kind of our analysis on the offseason as a whole. But before we get into the big picture, just want to get your instant thoughts on this signing. We'll start with Mark.
Yeah, my first thought is, so I guess Andrew McCutchen is not going to be a Pirate this year. That was my first initial thought, and I mean it's nice having some power, but I'm concerned about Ozuna's 35. Is he going to continue to decline? So that's kind of my next thought. What about you, Josh?
Obviously, first thought was definitely, dampens the light on possible Kutch return. But also it does address what we've always said is power. But the flip side of that, we can dive more into it is at what cost is that with defense?
Right.
Because originally we had talked O'Hearn, taking the bulk of DH at bats. I don't think you're signing Marcel Ozuna with 12 years and a mutual option to just get half of those DH at bats.
Yeah.
And that was my next thought.
Yeah, that's kind of where I am. I think my overall takeaway here on Ozuna is this was the best that they could get right now
Yeah.
in free agency. They tried for so many guys. And I guess we can just start the breakdown into it now. When you look at this Pirates offseason, I just wrote a column on it, which you can read at post-gazette.com. The lead of the column, the first sentence was a quote, "You get what you get and you don't get upset." That was kind of the synopsis of the Pirates offseason, where beggars could not be choosers.
Right.
Because of the way they went about their business for however many years in the past. They were not a priority, and they made it clear that they were going to try. And I think that effort was clear. They were legitimately in on a handful of real difference-making talents. And almost every single one of those talents used the Pirates' interest as leverage to sign with a team that's had more success recently than the Pirates. I mean, it started with Josh Naylor, who he used the Pirates' interest as leverage before they could even extend him a formal offer. Then Kyle Schwarber did it. And then they made a trade for Brandon Lau, and that was enough to entice Ryan O'Hearn to sign with the Pirates. And it looked like things were coming together. But when they got to a position where the needs weren't as wide ranged, where they had to really lock in and say, okay, we need some specific things now. We can't just shop for offense. They couldn't get it done. Both of the international guys, Okamoto and
Murakami.
or is it? And Murakami. Both of those guys were not interested in the Pirates. Gino Suarez. I mean, the Pirates probably expressed more open interest in Gino Suarez throughout this winter than any other team in baseball. But the Pirates sources even said, team sources even said, it didn't come down to money. It came down to interest, and they weren't willing to overpay to negate that stigma.
Mm-hmm.
So they got to a position where they couldn't address team-specific need, and they needed to get something in order to improve the offense. So now what you have is an addition at the right side of the plate. Like I said, I think he is the best right-handed hitter that was available in free agency right now. But this addition, as Josh noted, it might make your other additions lesser due to the sum of the entire whole. Because, as Josh noted, if Ozuna is going to be your everyday DH, where does that put Ryan O'Hearn? Does it put him at first base? And if that's the case, you're taking at-bats away from Spencer Horwitz, who was your best hitter last year. You could maybe play him at second base, but you just acquired an all-star to play there. And you also have Nick Gonzalez, who's a better second baseman. So it's not going to come there. And then the other option is playing O'Hearn in the outfield. O'Hearn has only played 29 games in the outfield. That's the most he's played in a major league season. I think he's played 101 games total, but he's never had a major league season where he's appeared more than 29 times in the outfield. You're going to make that one of your primary outfielders. And in return, that's probably going to mean Brian Reynolds moving back over to left.
Right.
Brian Reynolds is one of the worst defensive outfielders in baseball. He's been at a rapid decline, and you're going to move him from right field, the easiest place probably anywhere to play in PNC Park, to left field, which is probably the most difficult left field to play in Major League Baseball. And with those additional responsibilities, you have to wonder, is Ryan O'Hearn going to be as productive as a hitter, as an everyday right fielder, compared to playing in a position that he is most comfortable in? And for a guy that was acquired strictly for offense, that's a concern. Brian Reynolds, is he going to be able to produce at a rate that you need him to in left field? Heck, it felt like the defense wore down his offensive abilities in right field last year. So if your two highest paid position players reduce offensively because of this addition, how much better is your team getting? I get that overall, this is a problem the Pirates would like to have compared to the problems they had last year. Last year, they were just struggling to find 9 worthy major league hitters. Now they have to find their best 9 hitter, to find a way to get their best 9 hitters in a lineup that doesn't completely compromise the team's greatest strength, which is pitching. I don't know how they do that. I'll open the floor up to suggestions.
I'll start because as you're going on, your spill, I'm sitting here analyzing things, and it is I can't speak for him, but is it the flip side of, yes, you have this offensive lineup that looks better? Or are they thinking of trying to shorten the game and by inning 7 use the bullpen and defensive replacements? And I'll be honest, not to compare, but I was a part of a team that operated that way. But that was back when it was National League rules where you could flip the lineup, you could double switch. Ryan O'Hearn moving to the outfield to me is like Garrett Jones. Garrett Jones was flip-flopped. They were based off of our lineup. And, I think Garrett was more of a natural outfielder, but sometimes our lineup calls for him to go to first base, which was a little different, which is the flip. But anytime you got guys that are playing, I don't want a little bit out of position, sometimes it can affect offense because defense, that's the one thing that you're like, well, I don't want to lose a game defensively because, I know I may be out of position, but nobody wants to make an error that they're like, oh, that's going to cost the game. Guys really take pride in not wanting to, make pitchers have to throw extra pitches, as you said, Noah, highlighting the pitching staff. Is this a move that, with what you have, are they banking on, getting a lead through 7 innings and going to the bullpen? But even if you do that, you shorten your lineup, and somebody that you have paid is not getting that 4th at bat. So you see what I'm saying? If that's the way or are you going to play 9 straight innings with a defense that you're hoping is going to be overshadowed by an offense that puts up a lot of runs in a park that is not the greatest hitter friendly? But things still remain to be seen. But I don't know if that's a situation where they're trying to do the reverse, where we're going to try to jump out and by inning 7 make defensive replacements. As I said, I played on a team that operated that way, and we could get leads, but it's baseball. What happens when they tie it up and you look in the 9th inning, you're like, oh man, I wish, he had another at bat to change the game. And that's a situation where you're trading offense for defense, but at the end of the day, defense wins games, but offense is going to be up and down. But I don't know if it's a situation where, like you said, they can't be choosy. They got what they got, and they're going to have to make the most of it. But is that going to be at a cost? Is that going to be at a cost at bats or defense?
Yeah,
Absolutely.
Really quick, I'll share my thoughts here.
Well, I was going to say, I wanted to pick your brain, but before we get to that, let's take a break for our ad.
AJ, you know what I love about HelloFresh? The variety. Every single week, I can choose from over 100 recipes. That's a lot of recipes.
Agreed. You can go and you can narrow it down, Scott, to whatever you want. Family friendly, because I got kids sometimes that need to eat, so you can go family friendly, pescatarian, vegetarian, whatever you want to do. Healthy options, however you want to refine your search on HelloFresh, they will spit out delicious, healthy ingredients that then you get to cook, which I love to cook. I keep saying it. I love to cook. I love to chop up the ingredients and make beautiful dishes.
There's delicious steak and seafood plus 3 times more seafood options at no extra cost. Go to HelloFresh.com/FT10FM to get 10 free meals plus a free Zwilling knife, a $144.99 value on your third box. Offer valid while supplies last. Free meals applied as discount on first box. New subscribers only. Varies by plan. That's FT10FM.
All right, big thanks to our sponsors. So, Mark, I wanted to ask you, Josh brought up kind of another point I wanted to make that, you might be trying to sacrifice a little defense for offense here. Is this offense good enough to do that? Or is this a team that still needs to win on the margins? Because I think it is. I think that, yes, you got your offense to a point where it's about league average now, but that doesn't mean that you can just get by having bad defense, right?
I mean, that was one of the strengths of this team last year is they played great defense behind fantastic pitching. And that's how they got to be so close in those one-run games consistently. And so you needed the offensive upgrades to get you over the hump. But it seems like they've sacrificed that defensive benefit that they had to get to this offense. So it's how much of a benefit, like you said, Noah, are they actually getting from this? And that was one of the big concerns with Kutch was if you're going to sign him and have him DH all the time, that's going to take a lot away from this team because you can't have O'Hearn filling in. You can't have Reynolds taking a day off at DH. And so just piling on these guys and asking them to go out and be consistent outfielders every day that's a big ask. So I don't know. It's nice to at least have Ozuna. He does bring more than just power. His walk rate has been close to the top of the league. I think it's just behind like Judge and Soto. So he does draw a lot more walks recently in just the last couple of years. So you're getting a benefit there as well. But yeah, I don't know if this offense is good enough yet. I mean, they added 3 All-Stars. There's at least 6 guys that would have been the best hitter on this team that they've added now. So it's improved, but it would have helped if they got a guy like Gino Suarez instead.
Yeah. I like I said at the beginning, this was the best they could do right
it's just
now.
Not the best
right?
fit.
If you had to pick, you had to pick your best fit. And I mean, the reality is it looks a little crowded right now, but Josh knows this all too well. The team that you enter camp with is not the same team that you leave camp with. There are going to be injuries. And I mean, you look at last year at this time, I think it was like to this day, actually, I was getting a call from sources about Spencer Horwitz having just underwent surgery on his wrist. And this big offseason acquisition that was going to be their staple at first base was out for the first 6 weeks of the regular season. And then they lose Nick Gonzalez to a broken ankle on opening day.
Right.
And all of a sudden, your right side of the infield is completely wiped away. Now, you have a little bit more leeway with that, right? You can afford to have an injury at first base, at second base, at pretty much any outfield spot. But I still look at third base, and I wonder, I mean, who can play that position other than Jared Triolo? Who can play it well defensively? But if he goes down, is it Nick Gonzalez? Is it
That's what
Nick
I was going to ask.
Ward?
Does Nick play? I don't know.
Yeah,
Does Nick play? Okay.
Yeah.
Like, not remarkably well, like not consistently, not well. Like, that's the thing now where I still feel like their issues at third, I mean, offensively, they might have been erased by adding this right-handed power, but I still think they need to make another new move for infield depth because like I said, you never want to enter a season where you only have one guy that can truly play one position.
Right.
And so
we saw what happened last year.
And especially if Triolo is a guy that can bounce around too.
Right.
Obviously, I know you said he's Gold Glove, ready at third base, but we still don't know what they're going to do with Connor Griffin at shortstop. What if Connor starts in AAA? So then, do you move Triolo to short, which then puts you at who's going to play third? But then if he's playing third, who's going to play short? Which I know that's a lot of questions for Nick Gonzalez or whatever. But as you said, they need to find another, defender that can play all 3 of those positions. If you ask me, because one of the things we talked about through this, whole offseason with signings, and you're good at getting, making these signings, but you also got to be as good as your depth, and
Yep.
depth is only going to carry you so far. And right now, the depth on that left side of the infield is scary.
Just the left side in
Yeah.
general. I mean, left
Yes.
field depth is. I mean, who in the world is even going to play left field? Like, you have a great defensive left fielder in Mangum, but seems like he's the odd man out right now.
Yeah.
After the
And
seventh inning, when they got the lead,
yeah, right.
he goes
And
left and
then
Reynolds
I mean,
goes to right. But then you taking
Right.
that bat away from O'Hearn,
Mm-hmm.
or you taking that bat away from Reynolds, and
or
that is
Horowitz
what I was,
or
or
whoever.
Horowitz.
Yeah,
Yes, that's where I said you end up taking, you're trading offense for defense, but then at the same time, the money that you spent for some of these guys to get at bats might be taken away because you're trying to shorten the game. Baseball is
yeah,
unpredictable. We
yeah.
know that.
So one other thought I had after the Ozuna signing is, how does this impact the Pirates' interest in Isaac Paredes? Because he has, I think, a $9 million contract for this year,
Yeah, that's probably done.
and so I feel like that's
Paredes
out the
does.
window. Yeah,
Yeah.
and which is because the Red Sox just traded for Caleb Durbin, third
Yeah,
baseman
Yep.
from the
Milwaukee.
Brewers, and the Red Sox were another team that was interested in Paredes, but obviously I don't think he makes sense for the Pirates with their budget. So
no, and I mean, I think that now, yeah, I mean, there's still holes to be filled. I still think they could add starting pitching depth.
mm-hmm.
I still, I mean, you have a lot of young, exciting arms, but three of the guys factoring into this, Ashcraft, Jones, and Barco, all have had arm surgeries in the last couple
Right.
of years, and they're all under 25 years old. So that's scary. You don't want to count on those guys to cover 150 innings, right? And if
That's a
that's
big
the
ask.
case, then you feel comfortable asking Skeens and Mitch to do it because they can and have
Yeah,
done it
they've done it.
before.
Yeah.
But after that, I mean, you're juggling a lot of innings to cover in that that 3 through 5 spot in the rotation. And if one of those guys regresses, one of those guys gets injured, now you're depending on prospects to cover those innings. So
Mm-hmm.
I do think they could add a little bit more to the rotation, just so you have that surplus. And yeah, I think their offensive depth is remarkably better
Oh yeah.
than it was last
Yeah.
year. But their defensive depth, I'd argue, is maybe worse. And I don't know if their pitching depth is as deep in either the bullpen or the starting
Mm-hmm.
rotation. So it'll be interesting. It's definitely, I think, an overall better lineup than what we saw
Oh
in
yeah.
2025. I don't know how this puzzle comes together and forms a playoff team just yet. So that's where I'll leave it. Want to remind everyone to hit that subscribe button if they haven't already. We're on a mission to 3,000 subscribers. Can't do it without your help. Also, want to remind everyone QR code to get your Bucco Territory merch. Guys, any final thoughts before we wrap this up?
Not really. Just curious to see what possible moves may be left because I still think something needs to be done. So there's what pitchers and catchers report here pretty soon, but
Like today.
Next
uh,
week. Yeah.
yeah, but we still know things happen before, during spring training, after. But I'm curious to see because there's got to be something else in store if you ask me.
Yeah. I'm excited to see the final pieces, but overall, it's an encouraging offseason and excited to see what they do. So
Yeah, I guess my final note would be I think Ben Cherington had a good offseason.
yeah.
I don't know if the Pirates as a whole had a good offseason, but based off the circumstances that he had to deal with, and granted, part of that is due to his own creation,
Mm-hmm.
his inability to get the most out of trades in recent years, but it was pretty clear that his budget was around 110 million. I think it's at like 107 million is what payroll is now, or 108 after this signing. So they pretty much spent every dollar they could have. They added some all-stars. They added 3 guys who hit 20-plus home runs last year. They only had one of those guys on the team last year. So they achieved, I guess, the overall goal, which is to add offense. But it came at a very unique way. It came via a very unique way, and it was a lot more difficult than it probably needed to be.
Right.
because of people above Ben Charrington. So that's how I'll wrap it up. He's Josh Harrison. He's Platinum Key, a.k.a. Mark. I'm Noah Hiles, signing off, saying thanks for tuning in to another episode of Bucco Territory, presented to you by the Foul Territory Network.